Access granted.
Subject: interview with Emily and Lenny from Hasbro. Body: on 4/29/2022, Christopher McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80, was tasked with the mission of interviewing Hasbro's G.I. Joe brand team members Emily Bader and Lenny Panzica about the recent G.I. Joe classified reveals from FanFirst Tuesday. Here's what we could show you from that G14 classified recording.
Access granted.
Hello and welcome to the Full Force Redacted, brought to you by Generals Joe's Reborn.com with me, Christopher McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80. On the show today, we have managed to corner two of my favourite people in this world, but mainly because they make awesome G.I. Joe toys, just for me. The more phenomenal marketing genius, Emily Bader, and the heavy metal rock star designer, Lenny Panzica. Guys, thank you so much for spending your Friday morning with me. How are you both doing?
Swell.
Great. That was a delightful intro. Thank you so much for talking us up.
It's going to
Yeah.
get a lot worse.
It's all
now.
just
It's all downhill.
I like how heavy metal rock star and I said swell.
Yeah. Hardcore, man.
The image, yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Well,
very kind of you.
Guys, thank you so much for jumping on, and congratulations, I guess, for the amazing reveals from FanFirst Tuesday.
Thank you.
That was, I mean, there was some big news in there. We'll kind of get through it, I suppose. But we'll start. I suppose let's go in order of reveals. Let's do those. That's probably a good idea.
Sure.
So right, we covered a lot. We've covered a lot of. Well, let's say last time I spoke to you guys, Emily. I know it was yesterday, technically, but before that, last time I spoke to you was with the HasLab, which was an incredible little interview. Really enjoyed that. And Lenny, it's been even longer since I spoke to you properly. In that, so I mean, we've had tons and tons of figures. I guess we'll try and get to them some other time, but let's start with the reveals from FanFirst Tuesday. So we had that. Let's talk about Timber, the toy of the year, with that Snake Eyes accessory. Let's talk about that first.
I feel like that is really how our figure and pets work. People are like, "Oh my god, crocodile!" Oh, and it comes to the Croc Master. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So everybody's like, when do we get our Fionas? Which I think that's a really cool kind of testament to the products that we're making, because the pets, which are really, kind of an accessory, work so well across so many different 6-inch lines, where you really could say like, all right, I'm going to use Fiona with, my other branded figures, which I think is really cool. And she can just drop in there and it makes sense. I mean, as long as a crocodile can be chasing whoever.
Well, I got to say too, from a 6-inch scale standpoint or 1/12 scale, whatever you want to call it, it's fun to create other things besides humanoid forms.
Yeah.
So like being able to make crocodiles and wolves and whatever will come up in the past, eagles as we currently have. It's super fun to explore that, and there are opportunities for that. And I think adults and kids alike want to play with those or display those. So it's super fun, and to get into details. I mean, on Fiona, getting her color right was crazy. Like Tony and I went back and forth trying to figure out how to blend, because when you look at a crocodile,
it's not one color. Yeah,
it's not one color. And
the vintage figure was Lenny. That was just one block green.
I used to use that vintage crocodile for my salamanders when I was a kid. I had Fireball Island, the tiki head from Fireball Island in the middle, and I had. She wasn't Fiona at the time. I don't know what her name was at the time, but she lived in there with my 2 Firebelly salamanders, the black salamanders.
Amazing.
When I was totally into reptiles as a kid. I don't know if that tracks or not. It probably does. But yeah.
You've gone from swell now to
I'm back.
reptiles.
I'm back. And hold on, let me hold my mug up. I'm back. I'm back. That's be my head. Anyway.
Yeah. So, and also a white repaint for Timber as well. So that's vintage version 2 homage.
Yeah, that was the homage to the vintage. It's like an off-white, and I was trying to get some of the ticking, or like, how like when you look at a white dog or a wolf, they get that like kind of like model, not trying to look for the right word, but like they get that like off color in the white. We're trying to go for that too. So we're hammering that out at the moment. So that's the goal.
Fantastic.
So he's cool.
You probably can't talk about too many details on Snake Eyes and Timber at the moment, but would Timber come with the alternate head like the Alpha Commandos one does, or can you not really kind of talk on that just yet?
Emily?
Fine.
Yes, it comes with the
I feel bad for even asking the question like that. You just always if you want to tell me, just like Chris.
No, it's an interesting question, because it's an alt head, and we show the alt heads on the
It's a good question.
So
Yeah.
I think it might have just been a matter of layout when we showed the image, because I remember when we were putting those together, we're like, layout wise, what works. But yeah, totally comes to the other head.
Okay.
And yeah.
Good, exclusive for the full force. I'm taking that.
Yeah.
Then I send it to Hasbro, and they're like, "No, you got to cut that out." Okay, fine. Edit, guys. That's great. With the Snake Eyes figure itself, I mean, what was the thought process going into that repaint? Because obviously, when you guys spoke to repaints in a way more detail in the Hasbro Q&A, which obviously we can point people towards to check that video out. But what was the thought process going into that Snake Eyes repaint? Because it's quite similar to the deluxe, isn't it, in its kind of like styling and coloring?
Yeah. So the idea, so first I actually had a lot of different variants. We were going to like really push it. I think one of them, you guys can keep it or cut it depending what Hasbro wants to do, but I was going to do a white version of Snake Eyes in there, which was pretty crazy looking. But we felt that it was a little too far because people may not have gotten the other pack. So we wanted to kind of like nod to that pack a little bit. So if you didn't get it, and if you didn't get the Snake Eyes and Timber pack, you didn't get some of these parts and pieces, you can get them here. Yeah, so we were going to go wackier. But then again, you know, how I always talk about how I got to kind of like weigh out how wacky we're going to go, or like what characters we're going to make and what tooling we have. We kind of we pulled back a little bit on that one.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. Thank you for the extra information again. I didn't ask for it. Just want to put that out there. I don't want Hasbro to never let me speak to you guys ever again. You also revealed 2 more Walmart classified retro card back figures in Zartan and Storm Shadow. And we also heard yesterday that you'll be moving away from the plastic packaging. So how will it kind of affect this particular line? There's like a specific cutoff, is there, for this particular packaging?
Yes. So in theory, in a perfect world, if our supply chain hadn't been totally decimated for classified products in the last year, we would have been completely plastic free by the end of 2022. So with a couple of those delays, the last couple of figures of those big retro card backs are likely going to be coming out in early 23. So we have been politely granted an exception for those, with the promise that we will not try to sneak in more of those packages. So like we mentioned before, we will only be able to unfortunately do 8 of those before we are moved to plastic free.
But then the line
will be great.
When the line continues, though, is the main kind of point from here, isn't it? The Walmart exclusive line.
So it's kind of a question of, you know, what kind of a team do we want to do for Walmart in the future? We've been looking at it as kind of one of those sub teams. It's telling a different story. Cool. And even though they're not in, you know, numbered classified packaging, do we want to continue that specific story right now? Do we want to work some of those figures into mainline? Like, how do we want to continue that expression? So that'll be a more to come in the future.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's kind of digging through a few more details on that one, really, more than anything else. Tiger Force Duke with the Tiger Force Ram was a really fun reveal. Absolutely looks gorgeous. I love that deco anyway. And I'm a Tiger Force nut anyway. Another repaint, but are we likely to see more vehicles in the line going forward?
It's a goal.
I mean, we're talking within 2022, or are we talking further into the?
I think with the shifts, it's probably safe to say going into 23.
Yeah, I think more. Yeah, with the shifts, and I think, you know, as we keep mentioning, you know, we are a growing line. We are still figuring out how to expand within the confines that we currently have, and so I think that, you know, vehicles are such an iconic part of the G.I. Joe universe, and so it is really important to us that we do get to start bringing more of those into kind of our classified expression and scale. So yes, for the future, no exact details yet.
Yeah. I will. Obviously, the vehicles we've had so far have been with the Target exclusives, haven't they? We've had like the Coil Cycle, the Ram, is that it? And I think that's it so far, isn't it?
Coil Cycle, Ram. Yep.
Yeah. And so they've been within the kind of Target thing. Is it likely to stay in that field with the vehicles, or are you gonna would there be like you know, maybe in the main line or that kind of thing? Would you ever consider doing something along those lines?
Yeah, the hope is to, I mean, continue expanding. Target has loved having those kind of exclusive figure and vehicle packs, but I mean, in the future, the hope is to really be able to bring more of those into the line. And so I don't think that it's unreasonable to say that they may be showing up at different places or in mainline.
Cool. So classified flag, got it.
Yeah.
That's
I was
quite
just
well
gonna
I've
say
heard
yesterday
that.
that we figured out that that would be like 20 feet long if we did a classified flag, which seems, oh, and we figured out it's in height wise, it would be about 5 feet tall, which means I could walk into it without having to bend over, which is amazing.
You have to mortgage it basically when you buy it.
Amazing, yeah.
It would
It's a
be,
mortgage.
I could make it into a fort for me.
I mean,
like,
at that point, it's an actual aircraft carrier, isn't it? Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Scale goes out the window. It just
It's one of
becomes-
those for guys and for people that have kids now. It's like you have the that like wooden playhouse that people get in their backyards. It's that.
Yeah, but it's probably the one you're in at the moment, actually, Lenny.
Yeah.
Your actual house.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for a bit more clarification on that. The other, like one of my favorite reveals actually from the entire Tuesday was the Cobra Ninja Blue,
Oh,
kind of Blue Ninjas 2-pack. Because again, we are talking repaints again, but at the same time, I feel like these are so like ingeniously used here. Like the Red Ninja, it was a great figure. And obviously the, doing the deco, the change of the deco is really bright and lovely. But then the helmets, like the face mask heads, the Oni mask, the demon mask, and the Kitsune fox mask, absolute genius to kind of really bring those characters to life. What made you do that? Where was the decision at that point to go, let's throw these in?
I think that we needed another troop builder and we needed a 2-pack. So we were kind of looking at like what was available tooling wise, like we mentioned in the roundtable.
Yes.
And then it was like, how do we refresh them in a way that's classified, and then refresh them in a way where we can just do a really killer sculpt on some new heads, right? And I think that's what we did on those, right? Like I remember I had talked to Corey like years ago. I'm like, I want to make an Oni mask because like I love Japanese masks, and I was like, it'd be so cool to do one. But how do we do it in our way? If you notice some like tech details and stuff, so it's like giving them readouts and all sorts of stuff when he's got that mask on. Same with the Kitsune mask, like they're traditional looking,
updated tech, but traditional looking kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think I had been playing Cyberpunk at the time too, so I was like super inspired by like all that stuff. So we just wanted to do really nice Japanese inspired like masks that ninjas may wear, right?
Yeah.
And then how do we update them a little bit with some of those hard surface design stuff and all that? And then doing the deco was super fun too, because I always envisioned like this bright red mask on the blue body. I don't know why, something about that like popped for me in my head.
Yeah.
And then the Kitsune with like those swirls, I always see that in a lot of fan art that people do of Kitsune masks and stuff. And I'm like, oh, it'd be kind of cool to kind of incorporate there. And maybe she's a little bit more of agile or archer type, because Kitsunes are like a trickster, I think believe deity. So we kind of played that in there too. So
it's great that you've actually infused quite a lot of traditional kind of Japanese influences in the line already. What with the Snake Eyes deluxe figure that had was it the Raijin and Fujin?
Oh yeah, the Raijin and Fujin. Yep.
And all that kind of. So it's really cool that this stuff's kind of getting in there. And obviously, this is another question I kind of had for you guys. Like going into the future, there are some characters in G.I. Joe that you could probably call in this day and age maybe a little problematic. Obviously Spirit there was stereotypical issues with Spirit, and you guys dealt with that in an amazing way by getting people of that culture to kind of infuse some input into it, which was amazing. Have you got any other kind of ideas going forward? Obviously you can't say what they are, but are there any other characters maybe in the future where you're going to be doing that again? I mean, is that something that you've maybe discussed? Is that on the table?
Yeah, I think it definitely is. And I think that it's one of the cool things that I keep mentioning about G.I. Joe is, we keep reinventing ourselves and we keep doing new things, and we keep kind of learning about, the brand is evolving. And 40 years ago, we didn't have the internet to be able to look up and say like, all right, which specific pieces of this belong with which areas in the United States, and like which tribes are these really identifying features for? And oh God, okay, this design basically kit bashes 8 of them together that don't necessarily make sense to live on one human. And so I think, continuing to be able to evolve and ask questions and learn more, and then be able to present products that instead of being seen as just like a stereotype, we're able to actually say like, look guys, we're doing better. We're all learning and we're continuing to learn. And I think that that's so important. And especially with, all of the the globalness of GI Joe and all of these cultures coming together, it's important that we represent those cultures to the best of our abilities.
Yeah.
And to us, that means actually talking to people from those cultures when we are kind of re-examining those figures to say, okay, what can we do better? What can we do to make this less of a, less of a tiny embarrassment, but actually make it like something really awesome that people can be proud of. So yes, I do not think that, I think we will see some more of that in the future as we do some more deep dives into characters.
Awesome. I'm excited. Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or the Sarge in the room. Probably the biggest reveal of the stream. Amazing. Blew me away. I've got goosebumps all over my body thinking about it as we speak right now. Can we expect more from the Sarge? Because we've read in certain articles it's a multi-year deal. I believe you've said it as well on that Q&A. I guess it's not just the one figure we're getting. Is it safe to assume we're going to see the Sarge in multiple forms?
Maybe. It's a multi-year deal. Maybe. We'll let you read between the lines.
Good. Does
multi-years of being called a maggot.
Does the multi-year take into consideration the shipping issues at the moment?
Yes, it does.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I was just joking, but that's great.
No, so Sarge was really, really nice about the shipping issues and the delays, and was happy to kind of tweak the dates of the contract so that we could make sure that we actually do get multiple years of figures that we can get out the door with the contract, which was so sweet of him.
How many push-ups did he make you do for that, guys?
Ooh, 0, but don't tempt him, because I'm sure that I will have to meet him in person someday, and I'm okay at push-ups, but like they're not really my jam. So
all right, maggots, get down.
I could play a game of tennis with him still, I think, but I don't know. Do you think Sarge plays tennis?
He might.
Yeah, with like a hammer.
Yes.
And a rock.
Perfect. Sounds very relaxing. I'm sure the rock will bounce nicely on the court.
Oh yeah, perfect. On grass as well.
Yeah.
Lenny, how was it designing that figure, by the way? Or how was it putting that together? Because I know you mentioned a little bit about the kind of different versions you were having to kind of like, combine into one head sculpt.
Yeah, it was interesting because, when you design a likeness, you go on Google and you look up that person and you use reference to make that person. However, we were designing him he showed up in the cartoon 87, 88, if I'm not mistaken. It's a long time ago, and picture fidelity was terrible. So trying to find him on the internet was hard. So I had to like find him like when he was like a little older, and then find pictures of him like before he was even Sergeant Slaughter, and kind of like look at them. So I ended up redrawing his face a couple of times, and then working with Corey to go back and forth. Because on a likeness like that, really from a design standpoint, to draw his face doesn't really make sense. Like, let's just find some reference and like, get this out to the sculptors and have them kick butt. But like we had to kind of forensically recreate it a little bit, because this is like from a very long time ago. So it's like 30 something years ago. So, we ended up just doing a couple of inputs on there. I spent a long time. My poor wife is like, please stop drawing that face. You've been working on that one design for like a week, like that one portion of the face. Like I felt like a car designer where I'm like super into one detail for a little long period of time.
Just working on his chin the entire time.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, because it was like, it's interesting. He has a very interesting face. And then trying to de-age. If you ever watch like those shows like Face Off, where they're doing like face makeup and stuff, like they always talk about age makeup being the hardest. And I think that that also goes into like 2D design to 3D, like, directing 3D design through 2D drawings.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard. But I think we got it. Tony told me I nailed it. So I'm good.
Tony doesn't lie.
I don't lie.
It looks great. It looks great. Have you got to go, Emily? Sorry.
And I am so sorry. I need to jump, but you are in great hands with Lenny for the rest of the interview. Lenny, don't say anything I wouldn't say.
He's going to give it all away now.
Calendar.
Yeah, make good choices. Chris,
you, Emily.
So lovely to see you. Thank you so much for having us on. I'm so sorry I have to run.
Not a problem. Thank you so much, Emily, and I'll see you soon. Speak soon.
Of course. Have a great rest of your day, guys.
You too. Thank you. And then there were 2, and that means a massive edit that I have to. I'm kidding. Right, Lenny. Let's talk about the that was the reveals, and that was really awesome. We also had a lot of really cool dio shots, didn't we? And a lot of product of imagery and the pre-orders for 6 figures, which was incredible.
Yeah.
Let's start with Zorana.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know it was you, Zorana. Let's talk about this incredible figure. She looks perfect.
Thank you.
I love the fact that you did the 2 different hair pieces as well. Absolutely inspired. Was there a conversation initially of maybe doing alternate heads, and or was it always going to be different, like kind of wigs, should we say, like the Lady J style?
At first, I think because of the Lady J innovation, I was like, let's just do wigs. I don't think we need multiple heads on her.
Yeah.
And it's actually more cost efficient for us to do the wigs.
I was going to say, yeah, because smaller pieces and in the mold and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
right?
and the shape of her hair in particular, even the mullet, that mullet was really fun to design.
Right,
the mullet, it would have had undercuts on it anyways, so it would have had to be an extra piece. So then at that point, you're having one mullet in a mold. So it's like, why would we put one mullet in a mold? So then we got to thinking, and it was like, oh, let's do the alt head. And I can't remember if we did the alt head at sculpt phase or if it was directional. Remember, she was a long time ago now because of the delays. But yeah, it was like the Lady J innovation was really cool for us. So like, let's just keep doing that. I mean, why not? I mean, she would do face changes and wig changes like crazy in the cartoon. She's a trained actress. So why not? So it was fun to do, and we had to do the rockabilly hair.
It's so good. Like both hair pieces are great, and like it's going to force me. I mean, I get 2 anyway, but it's going to force me to get 4 this time, so really? I can have maybe 2, but yeah, because I want you want to have them both displayed. You want to have both versions going on there. The gun as well, like the innovation of kind of making that weed whacker way more practical and a little bit more intimidating as well somehow. Yeah,
the weed whacker, I looked it up, and it was like, I think the design inspiration was a spur, like a boot spur or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, they've got to classify this a little bit more. So then we went in and I was like, what would you do? So I was like, one of those like little hand rotary, like a hand tool, like the handheld versions.
Yeah.
And then I mixed that with a weed whacker engine. And I was like, we make this kind of contraption, and it's got the little handle on it too. It's cool,
Little detail, totally.
So it's super fun to do.
Is the rifle pre-existing in the line, or is the whole rifle redesign as well?
It's all brand new. It's one piece.
Awesome. Okay, I wasn't sure if it was similar to I couldn't remember what the Viper's rifle looked like.
No, it's not. So it's not the Viper's rifle. Okay,
cool. Awesome. Yeah, again, brilliant. Love her design. She's absolutely fantastic. One thing I will ask, actually, was there ever any thought to do mesh on her thighs? You know how she's got those rips in her jeans?
Was there
any thought about that?
Yeah, more like some of the comic books had.
Yeah,
there was. But then I kind of wanted to keep like that, like the pink legging idea that I always felt like she had pink leggings on underneath her jeans. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to keep it more traditional. Again, with that whole 40th anniversary thing we're doing, I tried to keep them. Of course, they've got to be classified, updated to be within the line look.
Yeah.
But I did want to be inspired by. I was inspired by the 40th anniversary for the whole messaging of the year.
Yeah.
So I was like, we got to go with that. I mean, there's potential repaint opportunities with doing that.
True.
But again, we got to see when those opportunities arise. But yeah, it definitely was something we talked about, but it was like, it would be too, I feel like it would have been too far. I think that iconic shock of pink on the leg, it kind of like helps with the squint test.
Sure. What about color change in the skin tone? Is there a possibility of that being done again in much the same way that Zartan was done? Obviously, being siblings, having a similar.
I think so. We just got to find again like the opportunity. So the color change stuff, it's completely painted. That technology, the way that works. So the figure itself is completely painted, and it's not painted where like you think they take the thing and paint it when it's all together. The way production works, it's not necessarily that way. I can't go too much into detail. I'm not sure if I can or not, but I do know that it will add double the amount of deco on the figure to do that.
Right,
so,
I see.
So you can see that the opportunity.
Premium deluxe kind of levels, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So
we
talked about it. I was like,
we did.
There's only other ways to do it. It could be more achievable at a lower price point.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool to know that it's a possibility though going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Love Zorana. Fantastic. We also had Dusty. And obviously Dusty is a big fan favorite, you know, in the cartoon, in the comics, you know, an iconic character. What was it like kind of getting that into the classified line for yourself? And also I will ask as well, with the headgear, had you guys considered a soft good and then gone, you know what, this is better as a kind of solid piece?
Yeah, we went more solid. We just felt the soft goods would have created a batting in the back of the head and it would have got awkward. So we went with the loader. It's very low durometer, like it's very squishy.
Yeah.
So actually you can adjust the way you want it to fit on his head. Like you could push it on super deep. It can sit super high. Because you know, a lot of like military hats, they kind of fit a bit large on your head.
Yeah.
So you can adjust the way it is on there. Not a lot, but you can like fiddle with it a bit. But we went with it being full PVC, just because the fabric and the pile of fabric and how thick the fabric has to be on that part of the body and the scale of our figures, it wouldn't have been as great as we thought it was, because we did want to do it. But it was just like, you have to put a batting in there, you have to sew it in there. It starts creating
and also
other obstacles.
Even at that scale, like sometimes it can not sit right, can it? Like
which was my biggest, and it's so short. Like if it was a cape, different story, because there's more weight to keep it down at that scale. But like it would have been 1.5 inches long. There's no weight. The fabric might have rode up, especially with sewed in.
You'd have had to have like almost like wiring inside it to like make it pliable, and then it's just a ridiculous amount of money and doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's getting wonky. So we ended up going, it is updated. It's a Havelock from the 1990s, and I didn't know that's what they were called. It's called, I think I'm saying, if anybody knows what it's actually called, I believe it's called a Havelock, and we went with the more 1990s style where it's got like a cut in it in the back. So it's long here and there's a cut and it comes down again. So it's pretty cool. It's cool to find. That's what I love about G.I. Joe. I get to do all these like researchy, dorky things and look up what things are called, or look up what the scales on a crocodile look like. Right? Like it's super fun.
Fantastic. Yeah, Dusty's great. Also, another great bit of innovation here was the 2 sets of goggles. So one that goes just over his eyes, over his regular head, and then obviously you can put the hood over the top, the Havelock over the top, and then the other one, which was slightly bigger, over the actual thing itself, so you can have both looks basically, which is kind of the best way to go about it. Did that kind of come out of maybe like how the Viper was done?
That happened at, yes. So from the Viper, we had noticed, it was like, oh man, it's stretching. So we're all like, and the Viper too, like for the Viper, we made a secondary part because secondary parts are always nicer, not always nicer, but sometimes nicer to do than have it molded on the helmet. Plus it gives opportunities for that helmet to be augmented later on with extra different types of goggles and stuff.
Of course, yeah.
But for this guy, we found that we could have made like a little elastic on the goggles, but again, you get into that pile issue, you get into minimal thicknesses of material, and it starts getting wonky. So ultimately, at the, I believe, sculpt input review phase, we were reviewing what the character was going to come with from a costing standpoint, and then we're all like, we got to make it come with 2, because that Corey brought it up. It's like, it's going to stretch. I'm like, you are 100% right. This is going to stretch, and it's going to be bad because, again, military helmets are pretty big on your head. So then the hoop has to be super big.
I know that Dusty Havelock is also much bigger than the Viper helmet as well, isn't it? It looks like it. So
it's actually probably the same size, because I actually use the Viper helmet a lot as like, if I'm going to do a helmeted character or like something like that, I use that for how much helmet comes off of your head. Because in action figure, we could do verbatim. If you do verbatim, it's going to be like, it's going to be huge. So we kind of idealize, Dwight and I talk about it a lot, idealizing things, right? So we have to idealize it a little bit. So yeah, in a way it was really used as like the threshold. So you could, I think it fits the Viper. I haven't played with it in a minute, but I think it does fit the Viper.
Awesome.
That's kind of cool. You can customize a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, Dusty's awesome. Oh, one other thing I want to talk about Dusty, which is incredible, is the rifle design and the bipod and where that sits. So cool, man. That is such a lovely update to that rifle.
That type of weapon was very iconic to him, and we needed to update it for classified. So like, how do we do it to make it ownable to our brand? So you can see like a lot of the casings and stuff like that on top of it. So we had to get it in there, and then getting the bipod on there was something we took from the Zartan pack, the bipod, and we kind of improved it and made it smaller and tighter than what it is on that one. So like the C clip that the bipod goes into and all that. So yeah, so thanks for noticing that. That was fun to do.
Wicked, so wicked. Because
Yeah,
yeah,
that
like
was
you
fun.
say,
That was a fun one to design.
his rifle's so iconic to him, and most people remember it because of having the little, you know, the vintage one having the little bipod on it and everything. So when I saw that the first time, I'm like, it's instantly recognizable, but it is such a good update. And obviously the mag and everything, there's a lot of like removable mags now, which is fantastic.
Well, it helps. That. We always feel it helps for photography and posability, right? Like it's like what's happening in between the battles and stuff like that. So it kind of adds those little details. And yeah, it's funny on him. It's like we changed his web gear.
Yeah.
A little bit because we didn't want to ride up.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's funny what we see as iconic and what we don't see as iconic. And his web gear was basically like to his belt and stuff. So we had to adjust things. It's because in 6-inch action figure in our articulation buck, it's not the best. So we were like, how do we make him be as posable as possible without having ride up and stuff like that? So that's what that decision was made. So I think it was the right way to go. And I'm actually really, really happy with it.
Totally. Yeah, really, really happy with Zorana and Dusty, how they've turned out so good. My ultimate favorite though is the Crimson Guard, and being a UK kid, Action Force, the Crimson Guard was synonymous with that line, you know, like it was on all the comics, it was always on, you know, it was everywhere on all the merch. So to see that done in just the most perfect way is incredible.
Thank you. That means a lot.
I mean, you guys, you had to obviously approach this with, you know, the original, the vintage, but then also like there was the kind of like the retaliation and then the Shadow Guard, where there's that kind of update, kind of like almost like a practical update. Was that a thought? Did that go through your mind of maybe kind of doing it more like the tactical way, or did you want to do it like the vintage?
So I wanted to do a little bit of tactical, but pull from the vintage again because that 40th anniversary. So I was like really focusing on the original toy and then taking it and pushing it to like in the classified textures and all that stuff, right? So when we looked at it, actually what really needed to be realized a little further, especially because back in the day, like molding drafts and stuff like that, details they couldn't get, was the mask, the face mask itself and the head of how that all connected together. I actually spent quite a bit of time on that, figuring out how the vent system worked, how the lens was, and how all that all kind of like congealed together. Because it's actually not verbatim to the old school toy, just because of the way it was constructed. If you look at like a character like Copperhead's original toy, if you look at the way the parting lines are, there's certain details they couldn't draft. So Crimson Guard's very similar, where I couldn't draft certain things. So, but in 6-inch we can. So we went in there and adjusted it to be a little more streamlined, and it was super fun too from a I call it hard surface design, where it's like, how do those contours work to make a cool lighting on them? And he was fun to do. I mean, currently right now we're working out the finish. The fit and finish on his helmet, because I want that helmet to be like shiny, or as shiny as I can make it in comparison to the rest of the paint ops and the body, just so it reads as metal. But yeah, he was cool. It was really fun to work on him. But yes, and then we added the knee pads to make it a little more tactical, because yes, they are ceremonial is a wrong word, but they are the elite guard. And I think some iterations had them in leather. We talked about that, them being more in like a leather gear, but then I was like, maybe more of a durable material, but not quite leather. Something that's more military fatigued, but a little more ceremonial, or almost like, I think it's Marines dress clothes. Maybe it's
kind of
material.
like suit fabric, almost.
Like a suit fabric, but it could take a beating. And that's where we added the knee pad detail in there. It's kind of like how the new military pants are built with like knee pads in them and stuff like that. So we pushed them a little bit, but again, there's certain things that you gotta keep. And then we found on this guy, like the silhouette was there and all those chamfers and details.
The sword, like as well, the fact that clips into the belt and the backpack, genius options. I love that.
Thank you.
And also, thanks for giving him a sword because he needed that big time.
He did need a sword. I felt like you're the elite guard of Cobra Commander. You got a sword, and it was fun to put snakes on it and stuff.
And the details are
gotta
wicked.
put snakes and stuff.
Do the details come out in the toy as well? Is that like, can you see like the tooth and can you see the snake head? And all that kind of stuff?
I wish I had one close to me because I would show you. But yeah, there's actually like a snake head on it. And like teeth and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then there's that tooth on the side of the sword, and then his dagger has got the snake head on it as well, if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully, I'm not lying. I don't think I'm lying. I spent a lot of time looking at these things, but sometimes as we move and then I start doing inputs for new figures, like things blend a little bit. But yeah, so it's a lot of cool.
I'm trying to trip you up so you give away all of the future information.
Hold on a second. Hold on. Wait a minute. Let me see. I'm in my. You're like close to all my stuff is over here.
All the dangerous stuff you're not allowed to show.
All the dangerous stuff. It was funny. I like, do I have anything in the background that will be seen that nobody should see? Oh, hold on.
Is that a HasLab Sky Striker in the background? I'm just kidding. Oh, there he is.
So here he is. This is not so finished version of him.
Beautiful figure. Oh my!
He's really cool. And as you can see, with like my lamp is actually giving a lot of gloss for us. But like we're really working on getting the gloss right on his head. And then his dagger came out pretty cool, where it's got like it's a little brilliant. Like a biting snake.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Cool. So and then it was, and again, 6 inches awesome because like you can get like
serration as
the serrated details and all that. So, and then we actually updated Full Force exclusive.
There we go.
Now the paint ops on this are not final. Just so everybody knows, it's an EP. Sure. But you can see we actually sculpted on his. This is the new updated emblem. It's a dragon with like filigree all around it, like a dragon hawk. I think we were calling it.
That is amazing.
It's sculpted in relief on him. So this is dedicated to the Crimson Guard.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Full Force exclusive. Thank you, Lenny. That's brilliant.
Course,
and again, like I said, that is when I heard that you guys were doing it, I was amazed. When I saw the reveal, blown away. Absolutely blown away. Beautiful stuff. Okay. The last 3 pre-orders with the Target exclusives. We'll quickly go through those. Bazooka, Tiger Force Bazooka, stunning figure. And an opportunity for you guys to do a different body build, some different details in the actual design of how the body is. Take us through why that was done for Bazooka, if you could, please.
So Bazooka's thick.
It's a big boy, isn't he?
Big boy, big brisket. I always say big brisket, right? So I wanted to maintain the brisket there.
Have you modeled yourself? Have you?
No. If only if I get to the gym more often, I can get that thick. Anyways, the ab crunch felt a little awkward on him because he has that big brisket. He's got a big abdomen or chest to abdomen region. So we were like, let's try the rocker on here. And I remember the rest of the team was like, the rocker? I'm like, yeah, let's do a rocker. And they're like, no. I'm like, I want to try a rocker. They're like, the articulation, he's not going to crunch as much. I'm like, let's try it, see what we could do. He crunches pretty well, actually.
Awesome.
Not as good as an ab crunch. But he's got.
So it's realistic then, because in reality, you wouldn't be able to crunch.
We actually gave him more of like his abs push out a little bit too, and that was messing with the crunch too when we had the sculpt. And the sculpt, it was looking broken. Let's push this around a little bit. Now, I saw a lot of comments on the internet, and everybody's like, is this going to be no articulation? Some people excited, some people like, no. It'll be case by case articulation on figures. Just like a lot of our other lines do at Hasbro. It's like, you got to do the best thing you could do for the character. So for him and his football jersey, it worked really well for his body shape and all that. So the case by case. So yeah, it was fun to do too, because we haven't done one really in classified. I'm trying to think of somebody, the females have it, but we haven't done a male with it yet. So it was fun to do.
Looks great. It's a really nice clean cut as well for the number on the jersey too. So that's a nice bit of surface area to work with, isn't it? I love the fact that you guys went with like kind of like a little bit of deterioration on the numbers. I thought that's a really nice little touch to kind of make it like he's worn it in battle for a few times. You know,
that jersey's got to stink so bad. I played football in high school and college, and man,
one game stunk. After one game, it stinks.
this dude's wearing it on every mission. Yeah, Yeah, so I think that we needed that. It needed to be, and usually even a pristine jersey is always, they're never that, like that screen print never stays. So we felt it was a nice little touch.
Love it. I think it's brilliant. And I want to say as well, we've got the Tiger Force bazooka. It's pretty safe to assume we might be getting the standard at some point in the future. Would that be safe to assume?
I plead the fifth.
Okay, good. That's good. I'm just testing you with
Emily's
Emily
not
not here.
Emily's not here, so I plead the fifth.
Wrist. Yeah,
I do it more blunt because East Coast.
I will. Exactly. Yeah, just East Coast. Yeah, just punch me in the face. No, I appreciate that, man. I was only joking anyway. And yeah, but yeah, cool. Bazooka, brilliant. One thing I wanted to ask you actually, is there any, because obviously we've seen blast effects with the Vipers 3-pack. Are there any plans to use blast effects going forward with any of the other figures?
Yes.
Okay,
it's
cool.
just, again, like I said, like it's like when we do sculpt review and cost review, that's a big part of the picture too, because GI Joes come with a lot of gear. So a lot of times I do see a lot of the comments of hands. I hear you. I hear everybody. I hear you. I want them. I want them too. But a lot of times my job forces me to make decisions, and like hard decisions, right? So it's like it's extra fists, or it's the rockets for Bazooka's bazooka. And it's
your
like,
family
what?
doesn't eat for that week because you've been fired because you've forced it through. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but again, we hear you guys and we appreciate the comments and stuff like that. And it helps us do a better figure later on too. So it's just a matter of where there's a will, there's a way. I think I've said that before, like we'll figure it out. It's like, again, there's a lot of pushing and pulling we can do. There is a lot and there's only so much. So then it's like, do we do accessories? Do we do more hands? What do you do with those hands when they're not being used? I know a lot of my figures' hands are all over the place or have found their way into drawers or around the house sometimes. So it's like weighing out the need of something. So
absolutely, yeah. And when it's practical too. No, I totally agree with you. I was just thinking like how cool it would be to have a blast effect for bazooka as well. I thought that would be amazing.
I'll say this: I have been able to, so the Cobra Trooper pack, because they are customizable blast effects, you can take it and do them in such a way where it looks like a concussive, like, and even the way I do it is you must have built them like a little flower, like the one is like this, and then you put the puff, and then you kind of shove that in the barrel, and then you could, the rockets, just so everybody knows, they all have a 1.5 millimeter hole.
Fantastic.
So you could put that on there, and I've been posing them like that. And I've been just like sending it to the team, like, look at how cool this looks. But yeah, you could do that. You totally can do that with it. And it's not intended to go into the front of the weapon, but you can, because some of the way the durometer of the plastic has enough give, we can kind of like shove it right in there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. On the images, I couldn't remember if is it the back of the bazooka that twists around, or is it
back?
The back of the bazooka twists around. And then does the missile then slide in through the back, or does it just stick in the front?
You could put it in both ways. Corey was pretty vehement about like getting that to work properly. And
so you could put like one in and then put another one to push the other one through.
Correct.
And then close it. Oh, wicked. So that's something I hadn't even thought about.
Yeah, because originally when we first got the samples in, there was an inner wall, and the inner wall was in there to keep it from sinking. And we were like, it's defeating the point. You're supposed to load it. But we found a way to remove the inner wall. I got to double confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that the inner wall is gone now. And you can.
You say you found a way. Did you just use a drill?
I did it. No, but there's QC issues, right? Because like in QA issues of like plastic sinking and not looking good.
Yeah.
And that'll get flagged over at the factory. Right. So it's like, and then it's us working with them to figure out what can we do to make it not do the sink. But I'm pretty sure the final version has no sink. Definitely has no sink in it, but we've removed the inner wall thickness so you can get 2 in there.
That's so awesome. That's made my day, actually.
Hopefully I'm not lying. I should really go grab one and check it.
We also had Recondo, incredible figure. Absolutely loved that. Again, with that one, the machete, I think, is one that stands out for me on that. The machete and the machete sheath.
Yeah.
How awesome was that to work on as well, to kind of create for him?
Yeah, because if I remember, did he have machete? He had like a sculpted one, if I remember correctly, on his thigh. It's like, I want to make that come out, which is cool. But if you've ever like backpacked or hiked and you had like a machete with you, you cut through brush and you have a holster for the machete. They flop around and get caught on stuff. So I made it more tight to his leg. I think I put 2 straps on there. I keep on saying I can't. I think my brain's not here today. But like we made it tight to his leg so that it wouldn't flop around on him. And then I believe I put some pouches on there too to get more use out of it. He's a G.I. Joe. We need the pouches. So yeah, it completely sheaths in there. It's fun to do. It's a machete. Machetes are sweet. So
amazing, man. Love that figure. And again, on the artwork as well, as just a side note, I love that you guys put the tiger fly or asked, or I don't know how it worked with the artist, whether they did it or not, off their own back, or if they were kind of briefed to do it. But I love the fact that the tiger fly is on there, because that is just so awesome. A little neat kind of nod.
Cecil and Lewis on our franchise branding team, they do a really good job of working with the guys to come up with storylines. And then in some cases, some of the artists just know G.I. Joe too. And like they're like, I'm gonna do this, and then they just vibe together and come up with some amazing stuff. I remember we saw it, the whole machete like in the background, and then he's in front of it. This composition's on point, man. So yeah, those guys, they vibe, they look into the story, they add all that cool stuff. So
yeah, again, loving Recondo. And the final, I suppose the final figure was the Python officer, which I absolutely adore. I love that deco. I love that kind of shout to the vintage as well, which originally in the vintage line, they messed the names up, and it was like trooper and officer, but they used the different, the names got mixed up basically, and they went with it by all means, by the looks of things. I like the fact that you guys are kind of correcting that a little bit this time around. But then the one thing that stands out to me about this, well, 2 things. One, the diversity of the new skin tone going on there for the trooper, but then also the fact that you've got the logo, the Cobra logo, to sit right in the middle of that beautiful crosshatch. Love that. The crosshatch is deco, isn't it? It's not like raised or anything, is it?
No, it's deco. Yeah, that's pretty much that's the original mold with updated deco on it. We just kind of reworked that pattern to fit that mold, and it worked out kind of perfectly. And we just changed the sizes of the diamonds, and it worked. I know that it was like, and just like with the Viper, the package that had to go to the factory for Tony. Ooh, it's a lot of wrapping, and like the direction that has to go to help the factory do that correctly is a lot. So I always have to apologize to them about the complicated decos.
Well, it turns out beautiful. I'm really excited for all of these figures. Lenny, we've come to the end of the interview, bud. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with yourself and Emily. Thank you so much. Obviously, Emily had to leave early, but can we get you back on again? I want to talk about all these figures we haven't had a chance to talk about.
Yeah, I love talking Joe. Yeah, sure.
Well, we'll have to get you on, because it's been a lot since we last spoke, and it's ridiculous. But congratulations on the line so far. It's been absolutely superb. For anybody who isn't aware of the classified line, who watches this show, get aware. It's incredible. Lenny, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
And that brings us to the end of the episode. But before you go, Lenny, we always, at this point in the show, after 3, we have to yell something. We have to yell full force, if you remember. After 3, 1, 2, 3.
Full force.
That was metal.
Access granted.
Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always, you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @TheFullForce, liking the Facebook page, facebook.com/TheFullForce, and if you would like to contact the show, you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback and questions. We also have a Patreon page, so if you want to show your support for the show, see your name up in lights on these videos, or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/TheFullForce podcast, or click on the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force.
Access granted.